This is juggling too many balls. I mean, I'll be honest with you.
Well, you're going live on the whole internet, so.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, if I'm going to embarrass myself, I might as well do it globally.
Do it properly.
At least this time with this interview with you guys, I actually turned on recording via Zoom to make sure that I am in fact recording, unlike a session I did a couple weeks ago. It happens, every once in a while you have this great hour-long conversation and then you go back to look at the audio files and see nothing and then realize, I never hit record.
I usually record Zoom and then I also record into Audition as well because the audio is better straight into Audition.
And let's just say from the get-go that based on the fact that the entire globe is on the internet right now, the quality of this recording via Zoom may not be as good as we are able to normally get. Because let's face it, we're all on streaming Netflix and whatever else all day long. And I'm watching my MacBook Pro right now. Its CPUs are maxing out and my bandwidth, I've got 3 daughters at home, all are on Hulu, Netflix, or Amazon Prime, or you name it. So believe me, if we all of a sudden start sounding like we're in an 8-bit video game from 1979 or something, that'll be the reason why.
Yeah.
Anyway, here I am. I'm talking with my really good friends, Alex and Todd Austin of Fletch Digital in Sydney, Australia, via the magic of Zoom, which, of course, everybody is using during this very interesting time. And, well, Alex, as you started to say, the last time I saw you, the last time I spoke with you, we were in person at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego. And then 4 days later, everything blew up. I mean, COVID-19 was shutting down everything. And you guys actually were out of Australia and more or less stranded in Hawaii for a week.
Yeah, it was the weirdest thing ever. Self-isolating in Hawaii.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously very privileged to be in Hawaii, but it was still weird and scary and like not being in our home country when there was a global pandemic announced was bizarre.
Yeah. And wanting to get home as well.
I guess uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is the one.
Yeah. And like there's worse places to be during something like that because, Hawaii's beautiful any time of year, but it was also quite slow. There was only a handful of people there that were positive at the time. So we weren't feeling very threatened by the virus there. There was more people actually at home that had it as well. So we were more worried about that. Yeah. But it was just the anxiety of being, away from home in that situation with our 7-month-old baby as well at the time. And we tried to move our flights forward to go earlier, but people had started doing that. So every flight was full.
Couldn't do anything. And they cancelled a flight.
And so we flew home with Qantas, right, which you've probably heard of. Their last flight from Hawaii was 2 days after our flight.
Only they cancelled that one.
Yeah. So, and that was their last international flight from Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So our Australian Airlines are doing no international flights anymore. There's Australians kind of all over the place, I think, struggling to get back still, so. And then when we arrived home, we had to go into 14 days mandatory isolation. So we couldn't actually leave the house. And so that was really tough as well because we'd actually kind of been doing that for the week prior to leaving Hawaii as well. So it was a long time not going outside, but we respected why we were doing it and we didn't want to potentially infect other people.
This episode of the Nonfiction Brand podcast is brought to you by Nonfiction Brandversity. It's a free Facebook group dedicated to the art and craft of personal branding, and we'd like to invite you. Just search Nonfiction Brandversity on Facebook and ask to join. You're in, guaranteed. I can't wait to see you on campus. Well, we could talk about this, especially the differences or the similarities between the Australian response and the American response. But frankly, I'll be honest with you, I'm following the news like a rabid dog, literally every change. The funny thing is, and here's me, the host of Nonfiction Brand, the podcast, trying to turn the corner on this conversation about the virality of COVID-19. to really kind of scratch my head when, especially people who are involved in social media, we talk about virality all the time. We talk about connections and networking effects all the time. So I think if you're kind of playing in that ballpark already, you understand how one person coughing on a flight could result in 10,000 deaths pretty darn easily.
Right.
So let's just say virality is a thing, and it's not just for Facebook posts or, tweets or anything like that. It's a very, very real thing because we're talking about communication and communicability of a biological virus and a memetic or an intellectual viral piece of content, which is actually Richard Dawkins' original definition of what a meme is. A meme is a discrete piece of intellectual information that can be transmitted via viral effects and via networks. So an example would be and we've all seen this happen where all of a sudden you see a new green for the first time and go, oh, that's a cool new green. And then you see it there and you see it there and you see it on tennis shoes and you see it on cars and you see it on handbags and you see it even in hair colors. It's like, where did that green come from? Why is it suddenly here? And the answer is, well, it's memetically transmitted through the culture, not a little bit, because they actually have color councils that meet on an annual basis to determine what next season's colors will be. Why? Because if we all have the same popular colors, then we're all going to be selling really well. Anyway, so virality, it's not just for COVID-19. It's also for social media and, dare I say, your personal nonfiction brand. Now, when I originally talked to Alex and Todd about doing another podcast session, one, I love catching up with you guys. But two, I always love getting your point of view about what social media marketing world was like for you. Now, this is the third year that I've been there. I think you guys 5.
Yeah.
So over your 5 years, over my 3 years going to social media marketing world, I've noticed some significant changes. And I wanted to just kind of touch base with you guys to get your take on what the most impressive things were, what the most depressive things were, and what the most actionable takeaways were that you took away from your time in San Diego. Let's start out by saying why we go to social media marketing world, because I go for different reasons than you guys do. To put it bluntly, I go to meet people, to make acquaintances, to find out the best of the best, to try to invite them on my podcast, to get to know them better, and, and kind of create real connections with what I would consider top tier people within what we do, the marketing space. But you guys, you go for slightly different reasons, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we go for those reasons also, but I guess the reason that we go has changed every year, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
The first year that we went for education, 100%. And I would say really hesitant to talk to many people. Like
networking wasn't really big on our agenda the first time.
Look, I'm not sure if people know this. Australians are known as being really nice people all around the world. We are not networkers. It's not a strong point of the average.
Well, and that blew me away because I had the really great time hanging out with you guys. But there were some times where we'd meet someone and you guys who are incredibly fun and vital and voluble, you're not afraid to talk or tell jokes or whatever. I would see this kind of gate come down or the shutters close up on the window a little bit because got very quiet and almost meek or something. And I know of at least one time where I inserted myself in the conversation to just say, hey, Todd wants to ask you to be on his podcast.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that is one of the reasons that you went this year, right? To kind of push not your confidence with speaking to people, but your confidence with actually getting over that initial hurdle of asking someone to do something and thinking that it's like thinking that you're good enough. Is that fair for me to say? Like thinking that what you...
Why would they be interested in doing...
Exactly.
That's
what I mean. Yeah. So I feel like one of the reasons to actually jump over that
Yeah, and I think I did. I think I had a few good conversations about my podcast to a couple of key people, and I think that was a boost to me. And people were actually interested in what my podcast is about, because it's not your typical social media podcast, and I think
it's not a typical marketing podcast.
No.
Well, let's take the opportunity to introduce our audience to your podcast. What's the title of that podcast, produced and hosted by Todd Austin of Fletch Digital in Sydney, Australia?
So it's the Good Social Podcast. It's about the good stories that are made possible because of social media. And I mean, social media is basically in our lives now and gets a bit of a bad rap from traditional media. And, and there are certain things that exist on social media that happen on it that give it a bad name. But there's also so many good things. There's so many good stories that come out of social media, and podcasts is essentially finding those stories and sharing them. So I do a mix of interviewing guests, talking about what they're doing on social media or how they're using it and how their audience is responding to what they're doing, as well as I find stories on my own, or I'll just dissect something in particular about social media that I think represents, the goodness of it.
I will say that it's very easy for even Americans to get a hold of it and subscribe via any of your usual suspects. I use Overcast, the iOS app on my phone. Typically, that's how I listen to podcasts, but it's also up on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. And just about any place you can get podcasts for free, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And if you want to connect with me on Instagram, I'm at Good Social Podcast there, or at goodsocialpodcast.com is the website.
Yeah.
Actually, I would say probably half of my audience is in the US as well. So, which is great. I love you guys over there.
Thank you for that.
Especially you, DP.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking about the current global political situation, and we're not going to go down that road other than to say, I love meeting people like you from around the world and getting your perspectives on things, because it's going to be different than that, which I hear over and over again, being here in the United States of America. Hey, nonfiction branders, did you know I wrote a book? Well, I did, and it's called Rotoma, the ROI of Social Media Top of Mind. I wrote it with my colleague Spencer X. Smith, and it's all about Rotoma, an acronym that means Return on Top of Mind Awareness. Best-selling author and NYU Stern School of Business professor Scott Galloway called it a book that starches the fluff from social media and helps managers allocate capital and find the unicorn among unicorns, ROI. And Chief Content Officer at Marketing Profs, Ann Handley, said, this isn't just a practical way to think about the return on social media, it's also a spot-on, accurate way to reframe your social efforts. Check out all the 5-star reviews on Amazon by searching Rotoma, ROTOMA. Pick up your copy today and start building your personal, professional, and small business brand the Rotoma way. So again, let's take a look at social media marketing world. Alex, why do you like to go to social media marketing world?
The thing that I have most out of social media world over 5 years of going is definitely not the reason that I originally went for, or maybe have ever gone for, but that networking aspect, that speaking to people, speaking to people is not something that I find terribly difficult, but speaking to people about work and having the confidence to speak to people about the work that I do and not play it down, that's not something that I'm especially good at. So I've really had to work at that, and social media marketing world has really helped me do that. It's so hard for me at networking events, but going to social media marketing world, Americans are just so warm, and they come up to you and they start a conversation with you like you did with us originally. And that has been a good jump off point for me to be able to try and do that myself, because I couldn't do that before social media marketing world. So it's not the reason that I went originally, which was definitely education. And it's not a reason that I would consciously list, it's more of like a subconscious bonus, I guess, but it's really essential. But I guess I would describe it as a subconscious bonus.
I think you probably hit upon one of the things that definitely is in the nonfiction brand, personal brand ballpark, which is getting out of your comfort zone and going someplace to overcome what may be perceived as personal obstacles or challenges in a place where people are open to meeting you and learning from you and allowing you to participate in conversations. And then all of a sudden, I don't know about you, but I wake up and go, well, what was I even afraid of?
Yeah.
Because, there are always some jerks in the world, but for the most part, everybody you meet has a smile on their face and at least wants to get to know where you're from, especially if you come to the United States with an Australian accent. Sorry.
Yes, that's exactly how it sounds.
Sorry about that. Well, thank you. Well, but you also point to the big thing, which is that an inadvertent blessing or takeaway from going there is the ability to become more comfortable talking about what you do, who you are, and how you do what you do. And again, a core foundational thing about nonfiction branding and creating a personal brand that bleeds over into your small business brand is being able to cogently and clearly and saliently say to someone, well, that you're asking me what I do. Well, my company's name is Collaborator Creative. And what that means is I collaborate creatively with a wide variety of individuals and small businesses on crafting, communicating, and discovering the channels that are most effective for getting their message out into the marketplace. Mm-hmm. If I hadn't thought about that, I'd be, I do some copywriting and social media, of course, is involved in it, but I do some videos too. And I have this podcast that I kind of do on the side. I mean, you can just see, why would anyone want to listen to that guy? As opposed to, tell me more about it. Like the Good Social Media Podcast. Oh, tell me more about it. You give someone a reason to engage with you.
Right. And I guess that's what you would call an elevator pitch, right? For the first time we went to Social Media Marketing World, I had heard of a pitch. I knew what they were. But I honestly, to be very transparent, would have said that I didn't, wasn't really deserving of an elevator pitch, really, like without sounding too dramatic.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah. But we really then put a lot of thought into it after that, or, really trying to boil down what we did. And I think that was from the first time that we went. I think that we immediately were swept up into this arena where we were like, okay, we've come from our own business where we started working from home, we felt very disconnected from the industry, other people and that sort of stuff. So when we brought ourselves into this arena where there was loads of other people that were doing exactly what we were, we felt accepted. We felt like we belonged, and we immediately started seeing things like, that's what we do. We can do that. We can get our elevator pitch going. We're operating at this similar level with these other people in our industry, our colleagues essentially. And that was something that we didn't think we were going to get from that first year. And I think that's one of the reasons why we kept going back, why we keep going back, is because aside from the learning and aside from the networking, the personal development, so much more valuable as well. And we've already bought our tickets for next year,
which we'll see what the world looks like. But
I've already got my tickets too, because every year, I'm going, oh man, that was really fun. But my brain hurts. By the end of it, my brain hurts. My voice is gone. Yeah. My feet are killing me. And I'm sitting there going, should I get a ticket? Now, they're smart because they give a killer deal if you buy your ticket on the last day before midnight. You get, half off or something like that.
Yeah, it's big. It's a big discount.
Yeah. And so it's almost impossible to head to the airport not having purchased the ticket. I mean, my first year, I was in line for my second flight home, and it was right at 11:45 p.m. And I had 15 minutes to buy that ticket for the price. And I did, because I'm like, you know what? I just got to invest in myself. And that's the thing that's the mind switch that went off in my head, which is, oh yeah, I'm investing in myself. I'm investing in my business. I'm investing in the menu of services that I can provide my customers and my clients by spending some money. You've got to spend some money to make money. You've got to spend some money to get better, especially if you sample the event, in this case, Social Media Marketing World, and go, wow, I got a lot out of that. And I have every single year gotten a ton out of social media marketing world. And, I don't want to make this whole episode about, hey, you guys should go to social media marketing world. But I will say this. If I had not gone to social media marketing world, I would not be talking to Alex and Todd Austin of Fletch Digital, an agency in Sydney, Australia. Let's face it. Todd and I met that first night, the first time I went, and we've been fast friends ever since. And that would not have happened had I stayed in my office in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, outside Madison, Wisconsin. It would not have happened had you guys not taken the flyer or not made the commitment to invest in yourselves and your business. Same thing here. Yeah. And the result is an international friendship that is now live streaming to Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Twitch. Which, by the way, I didn't even know you could do the first year that I went to social media marketing world until I saw people doing it. And I went, wow, how do you do that? And then you learn that not only is it easy to do relatively, but it's so cheap to do. But back to why I'm live streaming this right now. It's because I saw it being done and I learned about how to do it and decided I could do it. And then when I found out the cost, like what's it costing me right now to restream or to live stream to restream.io, I'm holding up a big zero because I've got the free version, the one that they want to upgrade you from. And frankly, I don't need to upgrade yet. I may down the road, but not right now. But I'm able to get this out to so many different channels for free because I learned about it. I saw it demonstrated, and then the fear and the mystification just kind of lifted, and it sounds like that's kind of what's happened to you guys a little bit as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So already this conversation's going a little long for this first half episode of the Nonfiction Brand podcast, but that's the way it happens when I get in a conversation with Alex and Todd Austin of Fletch Digital in Sydney, Australia, because they're just such cool people. How can people follow you guys? I mean, give us a clue as to how we can get the Good Social Media Podcast again, Todd.
So, I am on all of your major podcasting platforms, even some of the little ones as well. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and you can find me on Instagram at Good Social Podcast and on Facebook as well. And I'm actually going live on Facebook just after we get off with you as well. So if you want to, if everyone's not lived out yet, then, you can come and check me out there. And also goodsocialpodcast.com. We're usually hanging out on Instagram, Fletch Digital as well.
Yeah, you can follow us at Fletch Digital on Instagram, and we're on Facebook too. Our content has been a little slow over the last few months because we have an 8-month-old. And we were going to be starting with some childcare when we got back to Australia after Social Media Marketing World. But COVID-19 has a little bit of a pause on.
Well, I can attest that Alex and Todd are really high-quality people that you'll definitely want to get to know a little bit. So search for the Good Social Podcast wherever you get your podcasts and check out at Fletch Digital on Instagram, the Good Social Podcast on Instagram as well. So Instagram's kind of your number one channel?
Yeah. Although I think, for me, that's where I would describe that I like hanging out as a social media user. But I think you would identify Facebook as your preferred channel.
As far as, I like Facebook for when we do client work and for our business as well, just because you have more options to be able to direct people around, than Instagram, where Instagram's great because you build up relationships and engagement on the platform, but it's difficult to get people off there and where anywhere else, where with Facebook, you can do the same thing, build up an audience, but when you want to take them to your website, it's easy to do that there, or easier.
See, I like Instagram because I love a good online community, and for whatever reason, people hop on Instagram. They do seem to be a little more receptive to being part of that. Well, I say for whatever reason. There's a lot of reasons why people are more around. Facebook kind of shows everyone else that you're friends with what you commented on and where you commented on it, whereas Instagram tend to do that, and I think that's a reason why people do it. Yeah, I love a good online community, so Instagram.
I think that's one of the great things about Instagram now is that it's super easy to go from those analogies that that Mark Zuckerberg was talking about, or in that has become sort of synonymous with social media, is that talking from the town square down to the living room and everywhere in between those spaces, when you're considering having relationships with people. With Instagram, you can do that. You can have a public profile and you can talk to the town square there. But when you're ready, and if someone from your audience wants to, you can take that conversation into a DM super easily. And that's, I think, one of the great things about Instagram, and probably why that's better equipped now for where social media is moving to. People are becoming more ready or more right to have those living room conversations where it is private. But, you can delve out into the public spaces when you need to as well.
Well, and we're going to be talking about more about all that stuff in the next episode, which is going to air next week with Alex and Todd Austin of Fletch Digital, Sydney, Australia. And I, of course, am DP Knudten for the Nonfiction Brand Podcast. And thanks for listening. And if you like this podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, refer, and review the podcast, because that really helps people find it. That's it for this week for the Nonfiction Brand Podcast. As I said, I'm DP Knudten, and they are
Todd and Alex Austin of Fletch Digital from Sydney, Australia, and also the Good Social Podcast.
Yeah, get that plug in there, Todd. Good job. We'll talk to you in the second half of this conversation next week. Bye-bye.